Hey, hello, day drinkers. It is actually the daytime, and weirdly, we're not drinking. I feel like the days of day drinking are over. We'll be nostalgic about those days, coming up. But there's too much stuff going on. Kids need to be driven around. So we're having the interview without the booze, but my interview, Jenny Holiday, is here to talk about Duke actually, and it's all the good time you need. No drink required. So if you haven't picked up this book, the first book in this series, I'm going to blow this. A Princess for Christmas is what it was called. And it's got like the most adorable cover, high level romantic fantasy. And then this book, Duke Actually, is only better than the first one, which you can't always say. So if you are looking for some good time Christmas cheer coming up in the next few months, and I know that you are, these books will suit perfectly. So let me read you the back cover copy of Duke Actually. There's a royal wedding on and things are about to get interesting. Meet the man of honor, Maximilian von Habsburg, Baron of Landen and heir to the Duke of Aquila, she's going to have to tell me how to say that, is not having a Merry Christmas. He's been dumped by a princess, he's unemployed, and his domineering father has sent him to New York to meet a prospective bride he has no interest in. In the city, he meets Danny Martinez, a smart and gorgeous professor he's determined to befriend before their best friends marry in the Eldovian wedding of the century. Meet the best woman. Newly single, no-nonsense New Yorker Danny is done with love. She even has a list entitled Things I Will Never Again Do for a Man, which is why she hits it off with the notorious rake Max. He's the perfect partner for snow angels in Central Park and deep conversations about the futility of love. It's all fun and games until their friendship deepens into attraction and, oops, falling in love was never part of the plan. It is as charming as that back cover copy. So let's bring in Jenny.
Hi.
Hey, Jenny. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Thanks for really committing to writing Christmas rom-coms. That's like your gig now. You have
Yeah. It started out as one book, but luckily for me, the acquiring editor said, "What about making it 3?" And I thought, okay. So here I am. I just turned in the last one. So
that's
coming out next year.
The first book is A Princess for Christmas.
Right.
And the second book is the best friends of the bride and the groom, or the couple who meet in the first one. So now you have this bride and groom. Are you a Christmas fan?
I am a Christmas fan, but the origin of this series was actually was literally watching Hallmark Christmas movies, and it was my dad, who is a huge fan of Hallmark, Lifetime, all of these schmoopy movies. And I say schmoopy with love. And he watches them every year. And I was home visiting him several years ago, and he'd sort of pre-curated which ones we should watch. And we had an evening of binging them. And he's hilarious because he can never see his way through to the end. It's like he's never seen one of these movies before. He'll be like, "Oh my God, how is this going to work out?" And he just gets all invested. He's a very sensitive guy. So, and then we would kind of make a joke, because I would always say, well, clearly, the housekeeper is going to be the matchmaker. And I would sort of predict mostly correctly what was going to happen. So after this extreme binge one night, I thought, I wonder if I could write one of these. And I was not like I didn't take it seriously as a project, but it started almost like as a joke, as a dare to myself. And could I write a Hallmark movie in book form, but as one of my readers says, Hallmark, but produced by HBO, turn up the kind of snark and heat and self-awareness about it. So, and that's how the first one started. And then we shopped it around, and the editor who bought it wanted 3.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
It's Christmas all the time.
And so now here you are, sustaining your Christmas.
Yeah.
But do you, what a beautiful tradition with your father. Do you have is Christmas a big time of traditions for you guys? For you and your family? I know that we're all coming out of the pandemic, so it feels like, we're raw and naked and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah. I don't know if any more than anyone else, but in my family, my husband and son. I'm definitely the bringer of Christmas. Like I'm the one who is the, get the tree, watch the same movies, eat the same food kind of thing.
Oh yeah. I'm that person too at my family.
Yeah.
I swear if I didn't, although I think my kids now are very invested in it, but like every time I'm like, let's go get the tree, Adam's like, again?
Well, and not to be too like, I don't want to be too woo woo, but in a modern society, there's not that much chance for like ritual that recurs. Like, you go to weddings and you have these moments in your life where you pause and sort of reflect on, I don't know, the meaning of life and family and all that stuff. But the only one that really happens regularly is Christmas or Thanksgiving, I guess. But
No, it's true. On grand scale, on like big magic
mm-hmm,
happens,
mm-hmm,
it's Christmas for sure.
mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. That's a very good point. And one of the things I was going to say about your books, that comment that you had about, that it was like a dare to yourself. I feel like as writers, and particularly as romance writers, so you have experience with genre expectations, right? And a
Right.
lot of writers who go into these things as like a mental experiment do it without understanding the things that people love about what you're writing. So like I have a lot of friends who are like, thrillers are popular right now. I'm going to write a thriller. And like, well, that's all well and good, but do you understand why people love thrillers? And for this to be sort of like a mental experiment, I feel like you nailed the fantasy element of what people want in a Christmas romance. Did like the snow angels and
Yeah.
all of those kinds of things, a cocoa festival, like it's all
Yeah.
so was that like, did you have to remind yourself to put those things in, or did they come up organically for you?
I think both. Like my vision for this project before I sold it was I'm going to lean super heavily into the almost the bonkersness of this fake alpine country. Like let's make it as Christmassy and like eye-rollingly stereotypical as possible. But then I still wanted it to be a meaningful book with like I'm talking about both the books now with an emotional core that aligns with my other books. So I think both. I think it was plotted, or not plotted in the traditional sense, but planned in my mind as being like, woo woo, crazy Hallmark Christmas, so snowball fights and skating. And the
Mhm,
Cocoa Ball is funny because Audra North, right? So
mhm.
Audra North doesn't write anymore, but I was kind of plotting this out in the more traditional way with her, and I emailed her and I was like, there is going to be a ball. It is going to be cocoa themed. And she was like, of course there's going to be a cocoa ball. So
And it's
yeah, it was on purpose, but um, because exactly of what you're saying, these genre expectations. I wanted these books to work for people who don't read romance and maybe watch Hallmark movies or just pick it up because it's Christmas. I find a lot of people who are reviewing this book don't seem to be romance readers year round. So I
mhm.
wanted it to work for that, but then I also wanted it to be kind of a gift to like hardcore romance readers who would kind of get the little winky wink moments. So I
Yeah.
hope it worked on both levels, but
Well, I felt like it did. I was like, there were several times that I was like, oh, Jenny. I mean, and it, saying you wanted to connect this series to your other books, this is top shelf, high level romantic fantasy, right? Like it's a Christmas story. The guy is a duke, a baron,
right,
but
right.
there is a royal wedding that is happening. It is set at Christmas, but you always manage to button this high level fantasy to very real things, and not just emotional things, but like, that he's worried about the environment, and that there's this not long, but like there's this conversation about private jets and like the environmental
Well,
footprint, and I
but
mean, not in a
to
way
be
that was real and balanced and reflects, if you're going to write about a duke, you've got to address what it is to
yeah.
be a duke, like that kind of wealth and privilege. It was,
Well, I think to me, that's just personally like that's part of the romantic fantasy in a way for me because like I don't think you can write about a modern day duke without at least trying to like dial him back somehow. So that's just kind of me making him like not gross. I guess my point is I don't see that as a, like, you know, I hope that the high sort of romantic fantasy gets buttoned down. I like that phrase, by sort of the comedy, by the
Oh yeah.
rom-com aspect of it all.
Did you find
But
that part hard? Like working your way up to, I mean, not, you know, you want to read this book for the beautiful grand gesture at the end, but there are a lot of like comedic, funny, sweet moments. Do you find writing to a punchline sometimes difficult, or writing to a scene that you know is gonna you know, go for this laugh? Do you find that hard at all?
I don't think I think about it really. I think that's just how I write. I don't
Okay.
I don't have I always feel stupid because I don't really have like a I'm not a pantser. I kind of know what's going to happen, but I don't really have a writing process or a people sometimes ask me to give classes or workshops, and I don't really have anything to say. So I don't know. I just sort of that's I think some of my books get marketed as rom-coms and some of the older ones weren't. I don't think they're any different. I think I just write what I write, and right now that label is rom-com.
Yeah, it's the what marketing decides to what kind of cover
Or
marketing.
whatever the trend is or whatever. But so I didn't really answer your question, except no, it's not really on purpose. It's just kind of, I'm not writing to a scene or a punchline.
Okay, so I have two questions, and I'm going to ask both of them at the same time so that I don't forget one. I usually take
Okay.
notes. But I've filled up my piece of paper already. So what does your process look like? And speaking of like marketing, how delighted were you with these covers? So do the cover question first, because those
I was super delighted. I mean, I loved both of them, but particularly Duke. Actually, I just thought they like the illustrator and the art direction at Avon just like hit it out of the park. The cover, I can show you.
do.
Try to show, like, the cover illustration is adorable to begin with, but it pops so much on the shelf with the white against the blue, and
Yes.
you know, there's kind of a love actually sort of thread through this book, and so this was cute. But then also they put the publisher's logo on a little placard, and then the back totally pops. So yeah, I was just like delighted with that. And because the supply chain issues, you know,
Oh yeah, we were gonna get to that. So for those who may not know, Jenny, fill us in on what's happened.
Well, the book was supposed to, like a lot of people's books, it was supposed to come out earlier than it did. It was supposed to come out late October, which is too early for most people, but bookstores like to get Christmas books in early. And books, if readers may not know this, have what they call tails. So that's kind of how long people are going to buy them, how long they hang around and stand out on the shelf or get stocked on bookstore shelves. Christmas books don't have long tails, so it was a big bummer that this one got cut off. But also, there's no Christmas in the title, so I liked, you know, that was just a happy accident. Like it's Christmassy, but it's not like hitting you over the head.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was unfortunate. Although the story I have about that is that my now 12-year-old son was dying for the new Rick Riordan book, which was going to come out, I think in September sometime. And he had it pre-ordered. It was a first book of a new series. He was just like dying. And then that book got pushed due to supply chain issues. And he was very upset. And then a couple of weeks later, his mother's book gets pushed due to supply chain issues. And he comes home from school, and I told him that. He goes, "Are you more famous than I think?" Because you could see him connecting, like, you know, this dude's book got pushed. And I said, no, everyone's books are getting pushed. It's nothing to do with that. Like, my print run is a drop in the bucket of his. But he goes, "Do you have a Wikipedia entry about you?" And so, like, it's suddenly the terrain beneath his feet shifted because I, like Rick Riordan, had my book pushed.
Right. I mean, it's when your kids realize you have a life outside of them.
Yeah, totally.
And that life
so it's like
to them. Like
yeah, it's like the one moment I have something in common with Rick Riordan. And let's see, you had another question. So I love this. I love the cover. What is your
process? Like, so I understand that you don't feel confident enough in it to teach a class about it, but like, so you have this idea, you've mapped it out with friends, so you have broad strokes, or is it pretty detailed sort of outline?
I usually and this is, evolved over the years, but I find that do you find that if you sell, I know you're doing a lot of indie pubbing, but if you do any traditional pubbing and you sell, let's say you sell a series, if there's a synopsis written, it's easier to write the book.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that? So
yeah.
I think that when I go into a book, whether it's sold or not sold, I try to make myself get an idea of what the emotional arc is going to be, like I don't write with beats or anything, but what is the conflict? I just want to be able to answer what is keeping these two fools apart, and then I try to answer for each of them separately, what do they have to learn or do to get out of their way? What emotional problem needs to be solved? And it might mesh with a logistical problem or a plot-based problem, but the emotional core, I feel like I don't need to know, but if I know it, the book is so much easier to write.
Yeah.
So I don't plot what's going to happen, but I do know what their damage is, and usually how that's going to be resolved, what kind of realizations they have to come to. So that part is usually mostly done in my mind, and then it gets more refined as I write. And I find that I this is probably a lot of people, but I start over multiple times. So it iterates, but the beginning has been done 100 times. And the end is just sort of usually slapped on, which you can tell if you read my reviews. It's usually a correct point that people have made. So that's pretty much it. And then I don't write on Scrivener or anything. I have a piece of paper that has the number of days I either have available to write this book or that I would like to devote to writing this book. And I divide that by 90,000 words, say, and try and almost always fail to hit little daily word counts. And then I'm constantly rewriting okay, so I didn't get that done. So let's, shift the time horizon. I can totally write 4,000 words a day. So yeah, it's just a little process of bargaining with myself trying to get it done.
How many, do you have your word count goals in a day? What are they? Because I ask because it's been such a crazy spectrum talking to people on this.
I would like them in an ideal world to be between 1,500 and 2,000, which is not a lot compared to some people. But I usually end up going in sort of spurts. They'll have a really good week and then I'll get ahead, but then I'll be way behind. I don't seem to be able to produce consistently more than 2,000 words a day. If I have a big day, then I have a short day.
Yeah. You talked about your ending it was the ending of this book is so perfect and it builds so well, and it is very very cinematic, right? It felt epic.
Right. So two things. One, that particular ending that you're talking about was added after first round edits. So it seems like it's the inevitable ending that was always being led to, but it actually wasn't. And that was okay, because with this book, I was happy with this book because the emotional sort of arc resolved itself in the correct way in my mind. But then the editor of this book is wonderful, and she didn't suggest that ending, but we made some changes in the first round of edits that then sparked my idea for that ending, which should have been the ending all along. But when I'm saying my endings are tacked on, I mean kind of the last, I don't know, 15% of any book. I'm okay, now everything's getting tied up, and
I was having
these people, and everything's fine now. That part, I'm kind of with any book, not necessarily this book, just any book.
I was having this conversation with Tessa Bailey. I don't know if you'd read It Happened One Summer, and it's this.
I'm in the middle of it right now, actually.
It has a very epic ending. And I will admit to you, and I admitted to Tessa, is that often when I'm reading a romance and you solve that emotional, the dark moment has happened and people are recovering from it, I often will stop, right? Because I've read 7,000 romances. I know what's going to happen. And with hers, I stopped and then, picked it up a few days later, and it's just this, and it's the same vibe as yours. It just kind of keeps building, and those are not easy to write. they're really not. As an author, if you haven't planned it going in, like having read yours, which definitely feels like you knew how it was going to end when you put the first word on page one, but it's not always easy.
Well, I mean, I knew how it was going to end, but like the previous draft had ended she arrived at the palace, and they did like there was the final Dirty Dancing lift, because there's a lot of Dirty Dancing lifts in this book. So like it I guess what I'm saying is that like it ends the same way emotionally. It just the actual
right, the over the top part.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. I don't know. I sometimes think, Lorde, the pop star.
Yeah.
I read an interview with her a few years ago. I forget where it was, and she was talking about how she had her first album out, and then it was about the making of her second album, and she was talking about how she did some writing with this guy. I forget what his name is. He's like the Swedish super producer, Max something. He writes with he produces and writes with Taylor Swift and Katy Perry and all these people. He's like the Svengali of pop music. So she took a few meetings with him, and she said it in such an interesting way. She said, he told me that they were talking about a particular song, that this song was incorrect. And she said, and he was right. This song isn't doing what a good pop song should. And I thought that was really interesting, because I feel like romance is a pop song, and I am not Lorde in this equation. I am like, the person who's wanting to adhere to the Max Martin, Svengali formula. Like I feel, so I guess what I'm saying is, to me, the hard part is figuring out the emotional arc, and then the rest sort of like falls into place if you've got it right. If you don't have it right, God help you.
Yeah, I spent a lot of books during this quarantine, writing during this quarantine, and I'd gotten to this lazy place where I was like, "Ooh, I've got a great idea. I've got a great setup. That's 3 chapters, and off I go." And then after like with no idea of like how to resolve this thing. So there was no, and so it was start, stop, it was tear it apart, it was go forward, it was a messy ending, messy ending, messy ending. And then I've had this other experience with another book that I allowed to sort of percolate and click. And there is, when it's right. Like as a writer who's, written quite a bit, when that tumbler clicks, you're like, oh, that's how that should be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can go back. This is why I keep going back, because I feel like it doesn't really click dramatically for me, but I get little clicks, and then I think, oh yeah, okay. So then I got to go back and like start over with that click in mind, and it becomes kind of a circular process. I don't know.
A never ending. So let's talk really quickly about Max and Max is a hero, and the slow burn nature of this romance, because it's not enemies to friends to lovers. They're not quite enemies, but they become very, very, very good friends. Like how Max is extremely dreamy, very dreamy.
Yeah.
And they don't actually kind of get together until 75% of the way through the book, 80%. Like it is a slow burn, delicious slow burn, lots of emails, lots of texts, lots of phone calls. Like the relationship is lovely and established, and you're dying. You're like gagging for them to get together. But that's not easy to write. Or was it?
This book was easy to write. I do not know why. So this book is sort of, like you said, it's sort of enemies to lovers, but it isn't. And it's sort of friends to lovers, but it isn't. I mean, it is friends to lovers, but I think one of my favorite, I don't really like traditional friends to lovers books are not usually my favorite. There's always exceptions, but like where they've been friends forever and suddenly something changes and they see the light. I mean, like no shade to that, just not my personal favorite. But I love books, both reading and writing them, where they meet and they sort of like instantly fall into friendship, but there's some reason they can't get together. So to me, that's just like my favorite thing. So I think that, I don't know what you call that, but it's like friends at first sight become lovers or something. So I think that's easy for me because I just love it so much. I don't have a good explanation for why.
So did you always know in the setup of it, like that it would be such a slow burn, that it would be at the wedding that this, that's when things would finally happen for them? Again, part of the cinematic nature of it all.
I think that no, it just sort of worked out that way. And also, I am kind of tired of writing sex scenes. So I just kind of kept putting it off. I don't know. I'm kind of like not in the mood for it lately.
I don't know if it's the pandemic. I don't know what I have no idea, but I completely
Or
understand.
you
And
just you write enough of the write enough romance novels, and you're kind of like, I do find myself more um, attracted to the romance, like the emotional romance in
Mhm.
books that I read and write. Maybe it's like menopause. Maybe it's just my age.
Maybe. Here we are, women of a certain age. I mean, I feel like I spent most of my 30s only wanting to write characters and romances through sex scenes. They were figuring out everything through sex
Right.
scenes.
And now it's just gone. You're just dead inside, right?
Yeah, now it's just like, oh, they're just gonna talk, have Negronis at the bar.
Well, I mean, I did worry about this book. Like it turned, I feel like I ended up happy with it, but I did worry about this book and about some of my books lately where I feel like it's just a lot of sitting around and talking, whether it's in person or on the phone or via text. Like nothing happens in this book. They just talk.
Well, when your hero is as charming as this guy, as Max,
Well, and I think it's also,
you get
you
a
know,
lot
it's
of
also I think a slow process of something that I actually learned from you, that it's really about a process of slowly revealing one's vulnerabilities. I mean, in some ways, that's what a romance novel is.
yeah. Well, you nailed that too. The scene in the sauna when he finally tells her about his dad. Oh my God, so good. So good. The slow revealing of his vulnerabilities as this like dashing, confident, suave, like live and let live kind of guy. Like his secret pain was really quite touching, really damaging.
Thank you.
So well done.
I'm
Well
just
done.
laughing. His secret pain was great.
I mean, it's what we want in a romance novel. Okay, clearly one of the inspirations for this book is the movie Love Actually. And for those of you who may not know, Love Actually, in sort of the small secular world of romance landia, is a really weirdly divisive movie. Like you
Yeah.
either love it or you hate it. And the reasons for hating it often come down to the scene that you talk about in the movie, where for those of you who have seen it, where the Walking Dead guy is standing outside Keira Knightley's door with the signs basically saying, I've been an asshole to you, I'm so sorry, but it's because I love you, I'll be nicer, you know best of luck, always know that I'm your number one fan, basically, is what that. And people hate that, and I have never understood, because your explanation of the in the book is exactly how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, well, so, I mean, I think we can all acknowledge that in many ways that movie has not aged super well.
No,
Um,
no.
but we don't often ask many, there's not many movies that we ask to age that well. Like we don't ask a lot of movies to still be super relevant and, you know, of the current zeitgeist like 20 years later. There's not a lot of movies that survive that gauntlet. So
Particularly when the last 20 years are so changing, right? Like
right,
there's
exactly. So I mean, I fully acknowledge that there are problematic aspects of that movie, and as it relates to that particular storyline, I don't get it either, because the more problematic part is like the creepy video that he makes of her,
there
um,
are a
which
lot.
which you know, you can read as creepy, or you can read as he loves her and he can't do anything about it because she's marrying his best friend. But yeah, I think that scene is actually, like, people always ask me if my books are autobiographical, and it's always no, they're not. Like I get tired of that question, but there are sometimes little bits and pieces, and her opinion about Love Actually is completely like a mouthpiece for my opinion about Love Actually. And I completely agree. I think that scene is actually um, kind of like the arc of a romance character without the romance. Like he's realizing that this isn't cool and he needs to move on and he doesn't want to blow up anything, but he's, maybe it's gross that he needs closure, that he can't just do it on his own. But I don't know. I thought it was a nice moment
Well, if he
because
could do
she
that on his
knows,
own, it
like
wouldn't be moving.
sorry, I'm saying this wrong and I keep interrupting you, but like she knows, like there's some unspoken thing happening between them in that scene, right?
I feel like the whole of it is on her face. And I'm not the biggest Keira Knightley fan,
Yeah.
but the whole of it is, I've always looked at that little scene as an homage to the fact that you meet a lot of people in your life that you have a chemistry with, that it could have been something, but it wasn't something. And I felt like you saw that all in her face, where it was like, a bit of a sad goodbye of what could have been. Of course she's married. Of course she's happy, but that doesn't change the fact that there was a something between them that they both responded to in different ways. Anyway, we got really
and to set that aside is a nice gesture. Like, yeah. I think
so too. I think so too. Grown up. Although, yeah, who knows? Who knows what happened to them? But, so I was going to ask you another question. The other movie that gets huge, is weirdly divisive in Romancelandia, is Crazy Stupid Love. Oh, that's my landline ringing. What is that? Weird. Someone wants to do my air ducts.
Oh my God, air ducts.
It's all junk mail. I'm sorry, I can't mute it. It'll stop in 2 seconds. There we go. It's Crazy Stupid Love. Do you have a feeling about that one?
I don't know if I've seen it.
Crazy Stupid Love is the one with the guy from The Office, whose name I'm going to forget.
Which I also didn't see.
Oh,
I'm like culturally illiterate selectively. Yeah,
Steve Carell, his wife, played by the redheaded actress that is so good. She leaves him because she's slept with another guy, but they have been high school sweethearts and married. They have 3 kids. He somehow runs into Ryan Gosling, who then gives him a makeover and makes him, like, Ryan Gosling is a charming man whore. And he gives Steve Carell this makeover in an attempt to give him confidence and get him over this heartbreak, and ultimately to win his ex-wife back over.
I haven't seen it.
Oh my gosh. Well, will you please watch it and then tell me which side of this line you fall on? And then we can argue about that, because I thought you summed up my feelings about Love Actually so well. I thought you could sum up my feelings.
They don't. So people object to the makeover?
No. Okay.
All right.
I will not.
I'll watch it.
I'm not going to. You will love it. It is, well, or you'll hate it. But I look forward to talking about it with you. So you have just finished book 3 of this series.
Yeah.
Tell us, the hero was like a delight and a surprise. Who is the heroine? Lay it out for us.
The hero is the equerry to the throne, Mr. Benz, who appears more in A Princess for Christmas than he does in this book. He actually sort of is inserted into this book a little bit, almost artificially, because we need to remember that he exists for the next book. I should say that all these books stand alone. You don't have to read any of them to make the other ones work. So he is the sort of starchy, butler type. He's the senior advisor to the king. And the heroine is the American management consultant that the king has hired to come in and oversee or overhaul the royal family owns a luxury watch company. And that industry actually is in decline across the world. And they've resisted making smartwatches, and they just churn out these same old, super expensive watches that they always have. So he has accepted, the king has accepted that they need to modernize. So he hires an American management consultant to come in and do that, and assigns his equerry to kind of babysit her. So it is, they don't see eye to eye on the importance of tradition and reality, basically. She thinks he refuses to accept reality, and he is very bound by tradition and patriotism and all that stuff.
What is the title? Do you have one yet?
Actually, we just decided on it last week. It is going to be called So This Is Christmas.
Perfect. Perfect. And
A
we
little
can
knot.
expect that Christmas next year.
Yeah. Just keep coming.
You are trapped in a snow globe.
I know. Somebody gave me a really good idea. I gave it to myself. I was on Twitter and I was talking about how I had done a newsletter on release day, and I was talking about, what was the typo? I had said something about a royal wedding, but I wrote royal wedding. And I thought out loud, like, somebody should write a book about a princess who escapes to the royal garden because of stress in her life, pressure, and falls in love with a gardener. And so then I thought, I can't do this. I can't write anymore. Got to be done now.
That's pretty good, though.
I've done enough royalty for a lifetime.
Take a break. It's nothing but plumbers for you from now on, right? It's just blue collar heroes. Jenny, thank you for taking the time, and thank
you for having me.
Great
Always
Christmas
a delight.
book. Everybody out there, treat yourself. After Thanksgiving dinner, download these books. You will not regret it. Everybody out there, stay safe, have a drink, read a book. Good night, guys.
Bye.